I'll call the meeting to order and ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to the September 6th County Commission meeting. I'd remind you to silence your cell phones. The meeting documents are on the end of the counter in the white folder, and Robert is in the front row and he would have listening devices if you need one. With that, we'll move on to routine business. Item number 1 is consider a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 2 is County Commission meeting minutes from August 30th, 2016. I do have a short correction before you make a motion, and that would be that, and I didn't pull it up, but under old business, I had commented several weeks ago that I was going to have a report on my trip to NACO, and last week I did say that that report had gone out to you, and I just thought we should follow up that that had been completed. So that would be my correction to the minutes. If somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 3 is bills to be paid in the amount of $918,661.97. Is there a motion?
So
Pay the bills.
move.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments on the bills? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4 is reports. Item A is Minnehaha County Highway Report, August 2016, is on file at the auditor's office. Item number 5 is personnel actions. Item A is consider a motion to approve the routine personnel actions. Is there a motion?
So, second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number B is recognize significant employee anniversaries for August 2016. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Carrie Deaver from Human Resources. I have a short list for you this morning. You have myself celebrating 10 years, Adam Nelson with the museum celebrating 15 years, Patty Henry with the Treasurer's Office celebrating 20 years.
Is
Madam
any-
Chair,
Commissioner Barr.
just want to say that when she says myself, it doesn't resonate, but Carrie Deaver is celebrating 10 years here at the county and certainly as a very valuable employee.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here?
Nope, I don't see anyone.
All right. Well, thank you, Carrie, for being here and giving the report after 10 years.
Thank you.
Item C is recognize significant volunteers in the county government for August 2016.
We have a list of 278 volunteers throughout county. Every month I give this to you. I'm surprised that we're so close to 300 volunteers every month at county. It's amazing, so we're very grateful to them.
Okay. And item D is commission action, special action.
The final item is to approve the promotion of Jason Gearman from sergeant at $2,929.60 biweekly to captain at $3,314.40 biweekly, effective September 10th. This is primarily related to SWAT-related responsibilities, and Michelle is here to answer any questions if you should have any.
Okay. Any questions for Michelle?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks,
Thank
Carrie.
you.
Item number 6 is applications for abatement. There are none. Item number 7 is notices and requests. Item A is authorize auditor to publish notice to bidders for the remodeling of the Expo Building restrooms and the construction of a comfort station at the W.H. Lyons Fairgrounds. Is there a motion?
A motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 8 is planning and zoning notices. There are none. Item 9 is petition for compromise of lien. Item A is DP&O number 43423 in the amount of $5,635.40. Robert Wilson, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robert Wilson with the Commission Office. The applicant has submitted a compromise of lien request for DP&O 43423 in the amount of $5,635.40. He and his wife are attempting to purchase a home in the amount of $134,000, and this lien was identified as they were working through the work prior to closing, and the title company identified the lien. They are, I understand, expected to close on September 20th. This lien was recorded in June of 2000 has to do with medical bills, medical assistance provided through the Human Services Office. The applicant is here, and I believe he will wish to speak with you this morning. The issue here is really, I believe from the applicant's point of view, that he felt like he was never notified of this lien. I think you have some documentation in your application from the time of the application of the paper that was signed in acknowledgement of the service. I believe the applicant may speak to that. But it appears that everything looks orderly from the administrative process of the way this lien was intact and before you. And I would turn it over to the applicant to address you, unless you have any concerns for me prior to that.
Okay, any questions for Robert on this lien? Okay. The applicant like to say anything, and you can stay where you are, do not state your name, and you just have to speak really loudly. So you don't even have to stand if you don't want to. It's up to you, just talk really loud.
Yeah, as Skip mentioned, it's just a situation where I was never given an opportunity to pay this lien. I was never notified at all in any way. The last I had heard of it is that the Sioux Valley Hospital at the time was just writing it off due to medical hardship reasons. And up until a month ago on this title work for this new home purchase, it had never come up. I called Human Services. They said it wouldn't come up unless it, came to a sale or a purchase of a property. However, it was turned over to a collection agency who also I was never contacted by or received any kind of notification by. And of course, I was advised it would never show up on any credit reports, which it never did. But this collection agency never attempted once to contact me. As far as I know, they never made any phone calls, sent any letters. My wife is a junior high teacher and making her first home purchase here, and this is something, of course, that's preventing us from being able to do so in a couple weeks. And my biggest issue is just I never was given an opportunity to pay this. I've never been late on a payment that I agreed to pay in my life. I definitely would have made arrangements to pay this had I known about it. It's just really tough for me to swallow that in 16 years this never has come up. And the document that he was referencing, somebody forged my name on, and there's no witness acknowledgement on there where it should be. I have no idea who signed that paper, but that's the only proof that the Human Services was able to provide me that I was notified about this thing. And it's definitely not my signature or writing or anybody known to be on there. So somebody at some point forged my name on that document, and that, according to them, is the only notification that they've ever provided me of this lien. Any help or assistance I can receive in this purchase of the home would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Comments from the commission? Commissioner Benega.
Robert, do we get any acknowledgments or any kind of status reports from the credit-related organization who does the collections for us?
Not that I am aware of. The auditor's office works most directly with Hauge Associates, and they may be able to speak more to the process of how that communication and contact back and forth works. What I can tell you is what I see on the lien summary sheet that leads me to believe and understand that it's been turned over to the collections agency, and what I'm fairly certain that Human Services was seeing as well when they provided that information is there's a box in that lien summary sheet that has a code that we recognize that it has been provided to Hauge, but I could not tell you the status of any particular contacts or attempts to contact, and if the auditor's office wanted to add something more to that, I would they may be able to.
Thank you.
Bob Litz from the
Commissioner,
auditor's office, and the way it works is once we turn something over to Haugsy, And associates is the best analogy maybe would be is they put their line in the water. If they catch something, that's good. I haven't seen that I can determine a lot of aggression on their part for collecting these debts. As a matter of fact, last year we collected one, had to pay them, write them out a check for $1,800 because it was
There's
a
no
thing.
I'm sorry. So there's no due diligence reports at all on what they've,
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Commissioner Kelly.
This for Robert or Carol. The signature bothers me on the acknowledgement, you know, when we tell him what the deal is. He claims that's not his, it doesn't look like his writing. Is that a common practice that they don't sign, or?
You have your Human Services Director, Carrie Benz, here, who may be able to speak more to practice. I would remind you again, this is from June of 2000.
Yeah, I realize.
Morning, Commission. Carrie Benz from Human Services. Anytime that an applicant comes to our office and makes application for assistance, that is reviewed with them. The lien, if the county is able to provide them assistance, they are required to sign that document. At times, we have had individuals where if it's been something that we've needed to take an application over the phone, if we've taken it distance, we always have something where we fax the information to them so that we always have a written signature. Now, back in that year, I don't know in regards to what copies. Typically, we always make copies of their ID and their social security card when they come in. Now, because of the advancement in our program with a computer, we're able to scan those in. But back then, it would have been a hard copy. So we would have actually made a copy of their ID and their social security card.
Commissioner Bender.
Do we know if we have a copy of his ID and social with this application?
I did not help prepare any of the information, but I can sure take a look when I get back.
And then
pull
is
the
it common
file.
to have a witness sign?
The caseworker who works the case is the co-signer for that. They actually review it and then they sign it, identifying that they reviewed it with the applicant.
So this application, I don't know if you've seen this application that we're looking at,
I have not.
Doesn't have any.
there's not a witness to it, so you're saying that would be outside your normal practice?
Yep, and actually probably what happened there is I'm guessing that on the release of information somewhere else in the application that the caseworker would have signed that. So I can't attest to that, obviously, I don't know.
So it might be a signature somewhere else in the case, case?
I would tend to believe so, and I can sure review the case when I get back.
I think, to me, that's important. If it isn't anybody else, I'm fine, but if you could do that before the end of the meeting, and we could defer this, or if you want to act now, it doesn't.
Other
Can
comments?
I ask a
Yep.
question to Robert?
Yep.
Robert, were you, when you gathered this information, were you able to, did you look through the whole file? I mean, is it possible there's other documentation that you did not locate?
You know, this application was prepared by our office. I did not personally prepare this one, but I have reviewed it with Lori Montes, Assistant Human Services Director, and I know she had looked through it fairly extensively because we were anticipated that there would be some questions, and I can't say for certain that there's not a signature some other place on the application.
Additional comments or questions?
I'd like to defer this till the end of the meeting. I'd like to, I mean, if he did sign, that's one thing. If he didn't sign it, to me, we have nothing to stand on. I don't know.
I would also suggest that if you look at those two O's, they're exactly the same, and if you look at the S in his name, he also does it the same. I'm not a writing expert, but they look very similar to me, but then I'm not a writing expert. But is anyone else interested? Kirsten?
If I may, as a legal matter, this isn't a matter of contract. I just want to be clear about that. This is a benefit paid. Now, it's within your discretion to compromise it, but, you know, it's fine to get to the bottom of what happened here, but I don't know if that decides it as a legal matter anyway. As a policy matter, it might, but I just want to clarify that.
Commissioner Bender.
Can I ask a question of the applicant?
Yep.
So it's my understanding you're not disputing that these services were rendered. It's just, in your mind, a fairness issue that you didn't receive any notice of this. You acknowledge there hasn't been any interest that's accrued on this since 2000. So this is just the cost that the county paid for these services that were rendered.
This was never made aware of. I never received any kind of notification, communication from, the last I heard of it was from Sioux Valley Hospital, that this is being written off due to medical hardship reasons. I didn't have insurance at the time of the newborn son, and I never once heard any more word of it. And that definitely is not my writing on that paper. I have never seen that paper up until a month ago.
But I think that the point that our state's attorney is making is that really the legal obligation arises not by you signing this, but arises by the fact that services were rendered that weren't paid for. And I think that's the issue that we're grappling with here is then what is, arguably it's exceedingly fair that you received this benefit with no interest accruing for 16 years, that in today's dollars this is really a relatively low amount that you're paying for those services that were rendered. You said earlier that if you had noticed that you always pay your bills, and so in my mind it seems a little contradictory that now you have noticed but you're not wanting to pay this bill, and that perhaps is a timing issue for you.
I have no problem paying this. It's just the fact that it's the timing of it, that we're trying to close in 2 weeks. I can't come up with this money 2 weeks before closing. For it to, I've definitely had my financial struggles and responsibilities, but my wife never has in any way. And for her to be punished trying to buy her first home, and that, I would be more than glad to set up some type of payment arrangement to pay this off, because I definitely did receive medical services for it. I hope that there's some kind of agreement we can come to allow her to purchase this home. I would be glad to make some kind of payment arrangements if we can get it removed off of there.
Could you afford to pay half of it now,
Right before the closing.
before the closing?
I have a motion.
Commissioner Kelly.
I'd move that we compromise the lien upon payment of $2,800.
Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second? Dies for lack of a second.
Madam Chair, I
Motion.
guess I would make a motion that we defer action for a week and ask the applicant to consider
Carol's got
a plan.
I have a motion to defer for
Wait.
1 week.
The concern is we
Robert.
don't meet
Yeah.
next week because
Oh,
it's
that's right.
right.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
That's right, good point.
I was simply going to point that out, that
Okay.
you don't meet next meeting.
You want to withdraw your motion, Jeff?
I do.
And withdraw the motion. Okay.
I would,
Commissioner?
if I,
Excuse me, Robert.
if I may point out, I just want to make you aware that Commission Administrative Officer Carol Muller has also provided a complete rundown and narrative of the application to Carrie Benz, and they are both reviewing it at the moment as well to see
Okay.
if there's
And
any
I-
other notes, anything in here.
Sounds
that-
like that's irrelevant at this point anyway, so, back to the commission.
Why is
for
it
a comment.
irrelevant?
As far as whether there's another person's signature on it. Kirsten, would you explain that again?
Well, it may be relevant to you as a policy
Right.
decision here. I'm just saying as a legal matter, it
Yeah.
attaches. It might be relevant to you as a policy decision to dig into the file and figure out what might have happened. I mean, in all fairness, by the signature, we're looking back to 1999 here, so.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner,
I just want to comment, I think that over the years, we've heard that taking it off of the real estate transaction but leaving it on the individual does not work. So that is not an option that we have.
Yeah, that's usually an issue with the title insurance, and there's some trepidation on behalf of the especially I'm guessing it's finance, because otherwise it wouldn't be an issue. So
Commissioner Kelly?
Can we compromise this upon signature upon him signing a promissory note to pay over 2 years? I mean, could we, for instance, could we compromise it to $2,800 and have a 2-year promissory note with monthly payments contingent upon him signing that promissory note?
I can just speak from experience. My experience is the people transaction, the land transaction would still see that as you're just converting that obligation to another name, but would see its effect as the same. That's my impression of
So you don't think the
what's
title
happened
company
before.
would sign off?
Probably not.
Even though the, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just guessing, but that's past experience here.
I mean, he's indicated to us that he's willing to pay it. Since we don't meet next week, that would put the next meeting
Too late for him.
before, on the day of the closing or after, before it, but, or after it.
Could we schedule this as part of our budget hearing that we have next week?
I don't think, can we schedule this as part of the budget hearing? I don't know that the budget hearing is,
You have to have a regular
I think
meeting
it's a
for it.
regular
Yeah, okay,
meeting.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the paperwork that you guys have got that is a change from what we see on our screens here? I'm just signatures primarily, but
You want to just come up and,
Again, Carrie Benz with Human Services. Just in looking through the notations that are here, this is just a printout of the case that when the individual came in to make application, it just goes through and does identify what the application was made for, the amounts, and the process that was went through in regards to approving assistance for this. And so there isn't anything here that I would say identifies that there's a signature. It does have the initials of the staff members who processed the application. But I don't have a physical signature here right now. If you needed that, I would have to go back to the office and get that. But according to the notations that are made here, it does identify that it was identified that it was a lien at the time of application.
Commissioner Barth?
You know, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners, it seems like our only choices right now are to accept it or decline to accept it. And, you know, I guess the other thought would be, instead of the proposal that Dick had, I would ask the applicant, is there any amount that he might be able to come forward with now? Honestly, citizens owe us $49 million on these liens, and thousands of people, which even to send them notice on a regular basis would cost us thousands more. We don't charge interest, but I'm just wondering if there's an amount that you might be able to make as payment before the 20th that would be doable for you.
I would have to seek out either, from parents or in financing of some sort, but it's definitely something I can look into. Can I ask another question? Is
Yep.
that okay?
Ask a question.
Is it common practice to let somebody know when they have
No,
lien on them? Is it
just,
not?
you sign up, you just sign off on them.
Well,
Carrie, do you want to
like,
comment on
it's
that,
part
or?
from Human Services.
Yep, when an applicant comes in to apply for assistance, the application is reviewed with each person that makes the application and is identified at the time of receipt, if that case is approved, that it is a lien, that if you're provided that assistance, that it is a lien. It isn't common practice that we send out bills. The county, I think, has made it abundantly clear to us and in our community that we believe that that you've received that assistance, and so we don't send out monthly bills and harangue people to make payments.
Initially, though, based off of that document that somebody printed my name on, I assume where a witness is supposed to acknowledge, that's where one is supposed to be notified of the presence of this lien.
Yep, at the time that you come in and make application, yes, and then that would have been on the notice of action, that would have been completed at the end.
And I don't know if you know this, but is it also the same common practice for Howdy or Howdy and Associates to not
I can't attest to that. I don't know about Hauge, maybe Carol.
Good morning, Carol Muller, Commission Administrative Officer. A notice of action was sent on February 24th, 2000, that state hospitalization Minnehaha County has completed its review of your application for possible financial assistance on several medical claims. And so that was the notice that I know for sure was sent on this one. The payments were made on May 26th. What happens with Hauge is that we really don't, the direction has never been from the commission to aggressively go through and seek payments. The other thing that we have is that there's been history, whether or not we pass along social security numbers or not, and many of our clients, is typical of most of the population, moves quite frequently. And so therefore, addresses change, contact number changes, and without social security, it's really, really hard to go through and do collections.
Commissioner Berth?
I would also point out that in this case, it's medical services, but most all services that we provide wind up with these liens, things like court-appointed attorneys, et cetera. But I guess I'm wondering if we couldn't propose a lesser amount. And so I'll float a motion that we would ask the applicant to make a payment of $500 before the closing date and clear the lien at that point.
I have a motion for $500. Is there a second? Is there a second? Dies for lack of a second. I would suggest that maybe family members would be willing to float the, and I don't know the family members, but would float the loan that would help to pay this off at interest-free or even at 1% over the next 2 years, or a portion.
I'm sorry, would you say it again?
I said I would suggest that maybe he goes to family members and see if there is someone who would give him a loan for 2 years to pay it off. If his family knows him and knows he's good for his money, then I wouldn't think it'd be too much of a problem if they were financial in a place that he could help loan the money. But, so.
Madam Chair, is there a motion you'd like to have made on basis of your
I don't have
comment?
a specific motion either.
These are always very difficult, and you know, it's always such a timing issue when they come here that makes it very frustrating because it gives us very few options as to how to deal with this. I think that our practice has been frequently to forgive 50% of the outstanding balance, and so I would make a motion to abate 50% of this. If there's a payment made before closing, then it would be abated, and if not, then it would just stand.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to abate by 50%. What does that end up to be?
About $2,800.
28, 15, 16, 18.
Commissioner.
About 17, Commissioner, excuse me. Oh, I got it. $2,817.70. I almost had that in my head. I have a motion and a second to abate for $2,817.70. Additional comments?
I think that's going to be difficult to do.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. You'll have to pay that before the closing. You can talk to Robert and he can help you figure out what you gotta figure out, so. Next, we have opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone who would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda today. Okay, that will go on to regular business. Item number 10 is consider a resolution to express support for the basing of F-35 Lightning Joint Strike Fighter at the Joe Foss Field 114th Fighter Wing, South Dakota Air National Guard. Mike Lynch, good morning, Mike.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mike Lynch from the Sioux Falls Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for allowing me to visit with you and ask for your consideration of the resolution today. Just wanted to briefly discuss the military task force as a whole so that people have a good understanding. First of all, the mission of the military task force is to advocate for the future of Joe Foss Field, the South Dakota Air National Guard, and other military units in the Sioux Falls area. Currently, we have 22 on the military task force. Voting members include the chair of the board of directors from the Sioux Falls Area Chamber, chair of the board from the Sioux Falls Development Foundation, chair of the Joint Management Committee from Forward Sioux Falls, president and CEO of the Sioux Falls Area Chamber, president and CEO of the Sioux Falls Development Foundation, and then between 5 and 9 at-large members, in addition to ex officio members, which include the mayor of Sioux Falls, Commissioner Heiberger as the chair of the Minnehaha County Commission, chair of the Sioux Falls Regional Airport Authority, each state director for the South Dakota's 2 U.S. senators and South Dakota's representative from the U.S. House of Representatives, and the chair of the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee of the Sioux Falls Area Chamber of Commerce. So, what we have is, and I know that it has been in the media, but just to provide a brief backdrop of the current situation at the South Dakota Air National Guard. The South Dakota Air National Guard flies the F-16s currently, and the U.S. Air Force has determined that the projected end of service life for the F-16 aircraft is between 2027 and 2030. So all F-16 and all A-10 aircraft throughout the Air Force will be replaced by the F-35 Joint Strike Fighters. However, not all bases will receive the F-35s. So currently, the South Dakota Air National Guard is one of 18 bases throughout the Air Force being considered for site surveys. And we may know as early as this month if we are one of approximately 6 that will be selected for the site survey. From the site survey finalists, the Air Force will likely announce the finalists by early 2017. So right now we're in a position where it's very important that the South Dakota Air National Guard does not lose its flying mission. Just a little bit about the South Dakota Air National Guard. Right now there are over 1,000 disciplined, reliable personnel, both which would include those on active duty and Guard members. The annual impact of the South Dakota Air National Guard is $70 million, and the South Dakota Air National Guard has been the recipient of numerous awards throughout their history, some of which will be stated within the resolution that prove that the air base is one of the best in the nation. It certainly provides an essential mission for both the state and the nation, and a big part of what we're asking for as a military task force today is that if we are one of the bases chosen for a site survey, it's very important that we garner strong community support. So just a little backdrop, a little history on what the military task force has done at present regarding this issue. In 2015, the military task force held meetings to develop an action plan and have held several small group meetings since that time with the CODEL, with Governor Dugard, Mayor Huther, the City Council, and the County Commission. This past legislative session, there was a House concurrent resolution that was passed unanimously in support of the F-35 basing at Joe Foss Field. Mayor Huther has written a letter of support to be distributed to the CODEL. Today, members of the military task force and staff members from the Sioux Falls Area Chamber are on their way to D.C. for a fly-in to meet with military personnel at the Pentagon and with our congressional delegation as well. And tonight, the Sioux Falls City Council will consider a similar resolution that is what is similar to what's in front of you today. So we would very respectfully ask for your support of the resolution And if I may read that at this point in time.
That would be great.
Resolution MC16, to express unwavering support for basing the F-35 Lightning Joint Strike Fighter at Joe Foss Field, 114th Fighter Wing, South Dakota Air National Guard. Whereas the United States Air Force is currently deliberating the location of the F-35 Lightning Joint Strike Fighter. Whereas the F-35 is considered to be the world's most advanced multi-role aircraft, combining advanced stealth capabilities with fighter aircraft speed and agility, fully fused sensor information, network-enabled operations, and advanced logistics and sustainment. Whereas the South Dakota Air National Guard was founded by Medal of Honor recipient and former Governor Joe Foss in 1946 at Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Whereas the 114th Fighter Wing is a highly decorated unit, receiving several awards multiple times throughout the years, including the Air Force Outstanding Unit Award in 2015, and that was the 8th time that they had received that. The Distinguished Flying Unit Plaque in 2016, and that was the 6th time that they've received that. NGA U.S. Spats Trophy, which is the top flying unit, and that was received in 2014 for the 4th time, and many additional awards. Whereas the 114th Fighter Wing has served the United States Air Force in 17 deployments and activations since 1993, including Operation Northern Watch, Operation Southern Watch, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, among others. And whereas the 114th Fighter Wing enjoys steadfast support from local citizens, businesses, civic organizations, employers, and elected leaders. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Minnehaha County Commission that Minnehaha County strongly supports basing the F-35 Lightning Strike Fighter basing at Joe Foss Field, 114th Fighter Wing, South Dakota Air National Guard, dated this 6th day of September, 2016.
Any additional questions for Mike?
Have a motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Motion to make the proclamation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Well, I've got a comment on it.
Commissioner Kelly.
This unit goes back, it's almost 70 years, 60 years, 70 years? 70 years.
46.
It has always, safety's always been a priority, and they've always been a recipient of and being one of the top. Back, I was in the Guard unit in the early 50s, 60s. They were receiving awards and they are truly one of the top Guard units in the United States, if not the top. From an economic standpoint, this is extremely important to us. A lot of our own employees are member of the Guard and the citizen soldiers, so they do provide, to the city employees that are also disciplined in the military way, and I think it's very important. I think our unanimous support will be really great.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly, for your comments. Additional comments? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Item number 11 is a budget hearing to receive comments and input on the fiscal year 2017 Minnehaha County annual budget. Carol Muller.
Good morning, Commissioners. Carol Muller, Commission Administrative Officer. The Commission adopted the FY17 2017 provisional budget on July 28, 2016. After its adoption, the provisional budget was published in the legal newspapers of Minnehaha County, and today is your public hearing for any public input. So just a few comments about highlights about the provisional budget as it stands at this point. The general budget is $82,556,219. Cash applied stands at $5.177 million. Last year, you approved a $3.5 million opt-out, of which $1.5 million has been accessed. At this point, you have no plans to access that $2 million that is still available as part of that opt-out. $750,000 is included as FY17 expenses for the ERP purchase, which includes county financials, payroll, taxes, etc. Essentially, how I think of as the brain that runs a lot of the infrastructure of the county. So all the money works and money comes in and money goes out. There are a total of 11 new hires in the provisional budget, of which 10 are in public safety. The cost of those 11 positions is $654,000. On the revenue side, we have a growth of 3% due to new construction within the county, which adds $893,000 in revenue. The CPI adjustment is 0 per property tax limitation statutes. Recent legislation added the following revenues. SB 2's change in alcohol tax distribution is estimated to add $600,000 in 2017, and HB 1005's changes in fees adds $455,000 in treasurer's fees and $135,000 in sheriff's fees. Upcoming budget meetings that you also have is tonight at 5 o'clock. There is a joint meeting with the city of Sioux Falls where we will hear Metro, Siouxland Libraries, and the Siouxland Heritage Museum. They will present their budgets and you will adopt them at that time because those are jointly funded programs. A county budget hearing meeting will be held at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, September 14th in Commission Chambers. And just looking ahead, you will approve the budget the final week, which really means the week before. We need to have everything finalized and ready to go in numbers so we can have everything prepared for you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to comment on what the county has done for the budget for fiscal year 2017? And there are no comments, and so that is all there is. With that, we'll move on to number 12, which is a briefing on the Rural Ambulance Quality Assurance Director's Position 2017 budget. Briefing. Thank you, Robert.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robert Wilson again with the County Commission Office. The provisional budget for next year does not include funding for the Rural Ambulance Service Quality Assurance Director position. Now, this position has been funded in the past, $30,000 in 2016, and the role of the QA Director is defined in the county's Surface Ambulance License Ordinance. The purpose of this briefing today is to lay out a couple of options and things for the Commission to consider if the QA Director position is not funded in 2017 as it currently is. The Commission Office, Emergency Management Director, and the State's Attorney's Office have worked together to develop the following information. If the QA Director position is not staffed in some capacity, the State's Attorney's Office advises that the current county ambulance ordinance should be amended prior to January 1 of next year. The county and the Quality Assurance Director annually sign a one-year agreement for the provision of services. In 2017, if the position is funded, parties could consider changes to the terms of that agreement. One other suggestion that has been raised is to retain the services of an independent firm to review and make recommendations about the overall organization and provision of ambulance services across Minnehaha County. At the direction of the Commission Office, State's Attorney's Office, and the Emergency Management Office will identify potential providers and solicit proposals. And the current ambulance licenses issued to providers in Minnehaha County will expire at the end of this year. Applications from services interested in providing that service for the next term were due to our office on September 1st. That is currently looking for a 2-year period. If you wish to engage in independent review, you may wish to consider amending that license period to 1 year to potentially, if you receive recommendations of some different change in format, that you would be able to implement that a year earlier than if you issue 2-year licenses. Following a presentation by the county's QA Director, Dr. Jeff Luther, several weeks ago, there were a number of questions about the quality assurance review process of each of the ambulance services. And also in the state, questions about the state's role of reviewing ALS calls, advanced life support. Based on some of those questions, our office has been working with Emergency Management Director Lynn DeYoung. Mr. DeYoung reached out to each of the different ambulance services with a list of questions of how they perform quality assurance reviews, and those responses, along with the response from the state about ALS reviews, have been included for your review prior to today's meeting. Again, this information is provided to you as a briefing at this point.
Okay. Are there any questions for Robert on the briefing? All right. Thank you, Robert. Item number 13 is consider a motion to approve the following actions related to the disposal of the tax deed properties. Auditor Letts, good morning again.
Good morning again, Bob Litz from the Auditor's Office. And last week when you had a commission meeting, the appraisal board had done some recommendations, but the commission wanted a separate resolution for the transfer of this property to the city. The resolution is in place right now. I want to give you a little bit of backdrop on this. I think this property's been hanging out on our tax deed roll since 2013. It was involved in a contractor bankruptcy litigation for a while. The city of Sioux Falls approached us back then, in hopes of getting it, but due to the legal nature of the property, we were unable to give it to them at this time. Earlier this year, a couple members of the city showed up and asked about the property again. Dropped through the cracks, or somehow we didn't stay on top of this here. But anyway, they've been taking care of it since then. The thing that prompted their move was the neighbors out there have been asking for sidewalks around it. The city, it's a big pond. It's a significant piece of land. It is part of their comprehensive drainage plan. It's an orphan piece of property. There's not a lot of people that want it. I don't think it'd do the county any good because about every 10 years you have to muck it out. You have to mow it. You have to do a little mosquito control on top of that, as well as the sidewalks that they're asking for now. I did refer this matter to Kirsten, being it was tied up in litigation before. And Kirsten, I don't want to speak on your behalf here. Would you care to comment on the legal status of this?
Yeah, there have been, essentially, the litigation has concluded that was involving the company that was the developer of this property. I don't believe there's any impairment now to transferring it, as the auditor suggests today.
So a good home for this would be the City of Sioux Falls' engineering department. The action requested today is to declare RDID 82191 as surplus property for transfer, and to transfer RDID 82191 to the City of Sioux Falls Engineering Department for use as part of the city's comprehensive drainage plan. Approval of the resolution would authorize the county treasurer to issue a quit claim deed and allow the county auditor to abate all outstanding taxes, interest, and penalties levied against this property.
Questions? Commissioner Barth?
Bob, where is this property?
It would be if you would go out West 12th Street and where the T. Ellis Road is, and then start heading south. You climb up on top of the hill, and somewhere, I think it's between 18th and 22nd Street on the west side of the T. Ellis Road.
I would just comment too, Bob, that, I would have liked to known what the taxes were, what we're writing off in this whole thing, and I would like to seen a map and maybe a picture, and none of that was included,
I
at least in
provided
my-
those to the commission office, I believe, and I didn't,
Okay, because
they were certainly provided the week before, and we can get them if you want to delay this again, but.
I just would have been.
Just ran out of the
Okay.
room,
It
perhaps.
just would have been nice to have all that information that was,
If I might, I'd like to
Commissioner.
make a comment in general.
Commissioner
That, working in planning and zoning, it seems oftentimes these orphan chunks of property come into existence when developers design all these oddly shaped lots, and there'll be a lot in the middle that's just for drainage. No one pays the taxes on it, no one mows it, and eventually we wind up owning it. And so as we get those suggested plots going, I'm opposed to storm runoff ponds that are not owned by anyone and that's going to pay those taxes. If they should go to the city, they ought to go to the city right off the bat.
And I agree with you, Mr. Barth, and the way these come about is when a developer plots a big piece of ground, part of it, if it's going to be drainage, they have to put that in there. And part of their agreement is that they take care of it for perpetuity. Well, it doesn't take much of a rocket scientist to figure out that if you got it in perpetuity and you get to mow it and muck it out and take care of a piece of drainage property that has absolutely no income value to you, if you don't pay the property taxes on it, then it winds up being an orphan. And this has been a process that we've been going through here since I've been the auditor here on various chunks of property.
Is that upside down?
I know
Rob?
where
Yeah,
that
other
is.
than
I
being
know-
upside down, it's fine.
I know where that is. So that whole hole is nothing.
No, I think
You would flip it.
there you go.
You turn at
That's
the
it.
same time.
It may very well be full of water this morning.
I don't know where that is. Comments?
To do the suggested transfer.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Additional comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
you.
Item number 14 is Minnehaha County Liaison Assignment Reports. Are there any reports?
We
Commissioner
will
Kelly?
begin, the committee to replace the library director will be, our first meeting is Thursday, I believe.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly, for serving in that capacity. We did discuss this a couple weeks ago, and it looks like the time frame will work out for Commissioner Kelly to complete that assignment, so he will be doing that. Commissioner Barth?
On planning and zoning, I could have mentioned this earlier, but if you look at the bills, there are about 6 or 7 people that we've refunded them $50 to, and that's because they have a zoning change sign that we want back because they are more permanent than the little cardboard things that you nail up, and so they put a $50 deposit. We give it back when they bring the sign back, and I think there are more requirements on those signs than there used to be.
Thank you, Commissioner Barth. Any other comments? Is there any new business? Commissioner?
I'm wondering if perhaps the Sheriff and State's Attorney's Office might give us a report on heroin, opioids, and meth in the community, because it seems like there's been some more discussion in the media about heroin, et cetera, and you know, it's been a number of years since we had the meth epidemic, but it seems to be continuing, and I'd like to hear more about where we're at with that.
Could we put that on a future agenda?
Yes, absolutely.
That would be fine.
Commissioner
Commissioner?
Heiberger, along those lines, I think we had talked too about perhaps having the state's attorney come in and update us on Marcy's Law.
Yep.
And maybe we could address both those topics at that time.
Excellent.
I agree. We have reached out to the state's attorney, and I'm not sure whether we've had a response yet, but yes, we did want that. And additional comments?
Under old business.
Under old business, is there any old business?
Dick has his hand up, and then
Commissioner
me.
Kelly?
Ever since I've been on the commission, I imagine even with Jeff, we've been talking about the $50 million in liens out there and the fact that we cannot afford to send out because we'd have wrong addresses and everything else. But I'm just wondering if there's a way where you can say that any lien over $1,500 or $2,000, you can bill it annually, or there's some way that we can make an attempt to. I agree that probably the collection agency doesn't do a lot, and this incident today is kind of an example of where there may have been some good faith payments had the liens been billed. We've heard all the stories, and a lot of them are a real interesting situation. But I think that there ought to be some study done on how can we look at the ones under $500 or $1,000. There's no reason to go out and try and collect them. They will or won't be. If something happens and they buy a new house, they may have to settle it up. But in the long run, I think we probably end up writing off most of those anyway under the other 20-year deal and whatever the terms are on that. I would suggest that you do look at some of the bigger claims, finding out if they are collectible or in part or in whole. And down the future, maybe you can whittle that $50 million down to $40 million or something. I don't know.
I think it'd be interesting to know what our Hoggy Associates do. We did have a report or something from them since I have been here. We've had them come in and speak, I'm pretty sure. And it might be good timing to do that again.
Yeah, Carol Muller, Minnehaha County Commission Administrative Officer. Right after I started in 2010, there was a meeting about it, and I certainly think that it would be a good idea to come back and again have some of those philosophical discussions as to how do you want to be more aggressive? Do you want to retain the way it is? Those type of conversations I think absolutely would be good to do.
Is it possible to, they could be listed so you could show all liens over $2,000 on a sheet or something? Is that, Bob, is that
possible?
simple little computer?
Yeah.
Kirsten has a
Or is it more
comment.
complicated than that?
I would guess our system even currently could probably sort by amount. My only comment on this was really this is a philosophical policy decision that you made well in the past. I can tell you from a legal perspective, there are way more tools in your toolbox that you could use to go after collections of these liens. Look to the west. Your colleagues in Pennington County are way more aggressive with these. I can say as an overall policy, but those are the instructions that you've given to Hauge at this point. If you want to revisit it, that's fine. I will say too, just as a policy decision and seeing how these play out, there's an interesting contrast between folks who say, hey, I never knew about this because you weren't aggressive with collecting on these, versus, oh, you're so aggressive with this, why don't you leave me alone about my obligation? I mean, it's walking a fine line, because I think on both sides of that as a policy matter, you sometimes get some negative feedback, but it's a good discussion to have, I think. So,
Additional comments?
Old business?
We're on old business, yes.
You know, I just wanted to touch base back on the Rural Ambulance Quality Assurance Director position. You know, we did that survey that we sent out, and on question number 8, which is, has your medical director ever received a call about the quality of care from our doctor or a receiving hospital? If so, when and why? What was the resolution? So, 2 organizations, the Del Rapids and Jasper, said no. Humboldt said, I don't think so. Paramedics Plus said they don't do anything for the county at this point. MedStar said they got a call from a hospital, but not from our doctor. And Garrettson said the only contact they had from him was in regards to getting reports in January of 2016, which was this January. So really, there's no interaction between any of those ambulance services and our quality control doctor that we've had. And so it does seem like it's not necessary at this point.
Thank you. Is there any other old business? I would just remind everyone that we do not have a county commission meeting. Next week, Tuesday, we have the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners Convention here in Sioux Falls. We have some very good speakers. I think if staff is interested in hearing some of them, they can find out from our office who they are. We have representatives from our national organization, NACO, will be in town, and we also have a nationally known economist coming in. I think both of them will be excellent speakers. I think our staff could probably let you know what time those speeches are at. Is there any other old business? I would look for a motion to adjourn into executive session for personnel, possible litigation, and contract negotiations.
So moved.
A
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.